Over the last few years, I've had people come to me asking about how to make a low chlorine method work. There's new information available now you can easily find on the internet that discusses the negatives of using chlorine in a pool. So I basically, over the past couple of years, have done some experimenting with different chemicals and talking with different chemical manufacturers to figure out how can we make a low chlorine system actually work. It's where you don't have algae, your pool doesn't cloud up on you, and you barely use any chlorine throughout the season. And we finally come up with it. We've actually been teaching it for the last couple of years, and we have several customers that do it and they love it. Last year I did a video blog. There's over 70 posts, so if you think you can listen to me ramble for about 6 to 7 hours, I encourage you to watch all of them. But basically, I use this method in a 15,000 gallon pool. I never had the chlorine above 1 part per million. I never had algae. I never had cloudy water. And I used less than 20 pounds of 3-inch tablets, and I shocked the pool less than 5 times the whole year, which is pretty incredible. The other reason I like this regimen is because it's very easy. You just have to do things weekly. It takes maybe 12 minutes, and it addresses a lot of the common pool issues that we see.
Chlorine irritation. When chlorine gets tied up with organic matter, it creates chloramines, which can burn the eyes, nose, throat, and can worsen asthma symptoms. So with our low chlorine chemistry method, we use natural substances to get rid of organic matter from the pool, thus eliminating the creation of chloramines. Cyanuric acid, also known as stabilizer, builds up in the pool water through the excessive use of 3-inch tablets. Once it builds 100 parts per million or higher, you have to drain the pool in order to correct this mistake. Our low chlorine system uses the minimum amount of 3-inch tablets, thus allowing you to better control your cyanuric acid levels throughout the season. Calcium scale. Traditional pool care usually calls for you to shock the pool every week. Usually the type of shock used is a blend of what we call calcium hypochlorite, which adds calcium scale to the pool every time you use it. Our low chlorine method minimizes the use of cal hypo shock and adds scale inhibiting minerals that stop scale from happening, even if your calcium hardness is above the recommended range. Disinfection byproducts, or DBPs for short, are a result of chlorine mixing with organic matter in the pool water. These include substances like chloroform, cyanogen chloride, which is a nerve agent, and halogenated acids. Over long-term exposure to DBPs, you can expect a higher risk of cancer, having problems with your kidneys and liver, and an increased risk of developing a neurological disorder. Our low chlorine system uses natural processes to remove organic matter from your pool while minimizing chlorine's necessity. Thus, we completely minimize the amount of DBPs created. There are more than 21,000 types of algae, and most of these are very chlorine resistant. Our 6-step method utilizes natural algaecidal chemicals that no algae is resistant to. You will not have any algae problems. Step 1. Add Supreme Plus.
The first and most important step in this process is adding Supreme Plus into your pool water. This sets the foundation for the low chlorine maintenance.
Why? Supreme Plus is a boron compound in a mineral salt called sodium tetraborate. It acts as an overall water enhancer and eases pool maintenance. Borate does the job of 6 different types of pool chemicals in your water. It acts first as a clarifier. By changing the way that light refracts through pool water, it gives it a crisp and clear appearance. It acts as an algae stat, which means it stops algae from being able to digest food, slowing its growth. It acts as a water softener, leaving your pool water feeling silky smooth. It's a stain inhibitor and a scale inhibitor, which means you're not going to get pool stains, you're not going to see a bunch of calcium scale build up on your tile line and on your plaster. It's also a very powerful pH buffer that will help to keep your pH stable throughout the season. Supreme Plus must initially be added at a rate of 3 pounds per 1,000 gallons of pool water. Example, a 15,000 gallon pool will need 45 pounds up front. You simply just pour this into the pool. Once added to the pool, Supreme Plus is only lost through backwash and doing cannonballs and actually physically losing water from your pool. It does not evaporate. Thus, the initial dose of Supreme Plus will typically keep your borate levels where they need to be for about 2 years. Step 2. Add a mineral feeder to your pool. There are more than 21,000 types of algae, most of which are resistant to chlorine. Yellow algae can grow in chlorine as high as 5 parts per million, but no algae are resistant to minerals. In addition to being very effective algae killers, minerals can decimate bacteria and viruses, without creating the harmful DBPs that chlorine does. As well, mineral systems are very soft on the skin. Riverbend installs Nature 2 systems on a lot of its new pools, so you may already have either an express unit or a professional in-ground unit. If not, we recommend you go with what's called a PoolRx mineral system.
This is a Nature 2 Express cartridge. This is for the Express system, which has a blue vessel with a cartridge inside of it. These cartridges need to be replaced every 6 months. Another Nature 2 vessel is what we call the IG, or the in-ground. Looks like a giant gray capsule with a giant steering wheel on top, and it takes these larger cartridges, which also need to be replaced every 6 months.
To install a new cartridge, put your pool in service mode, that way the pump shuts off. Unscrew your old Nature 2 cartridge, and simply screw the new one back into the vessel.
If you don't have a Nature 2 mineral feeding unit installed with your pool, then what I recommend is you add a PoolRx as the mineral feeding unit. This blue unit here covers pools all the way from 7,500 to 20,000 gallons. The black unit covers pools all the way from 20,000 to 30,000 gallons. And if your pool is larger than 30,000 gallons, you'll need a black unit and a booster to start off. Each unit will require an additional booster after about 4 to 6 months, depending on the size of your pool. About 4 to 6 months after you add your PoolRx into your pump, you're going to want to add a booster pack into your skimmer. All this booster pack is a bunch more minerals in this powder, and it recharges the mineral level in the pool water. So like I said, you need to do this every 4 to 6 months.
To install a PoolRx unit, put your pool in service mode, unscrew the lid on your pump, and drop the PoolRx unit into the pump basket. Step 3. Weekly, add an enzyme and phosphate remover.
After you've added borates to your pool, which is an annual maintenance issue, and then you add a mineral feeding unit, which is a biannual maintenance issue, each week you'll need to add what we call an enzyme and phosphate remover.
Enzyme and phosphate remover combos do 2 things for your pool. They biodegrade organic matter and remove an algae nutrient called phosphates. You must add them weekly in appropriate doses. Enzymes also get rid of oils, lotions, pollen, etc., things like that, without creating the harmful DBPs that chlorine does. There are 4 different types of enzyme and phosphate remover combos: Pool Perfect Phos-Free, Orinda CV700, Sea Clear Free and Clear, and Mighty Pods by Sea Clear.
This is Pool Perfect plus Phos-Free by Natural Chemistry. This is a great enzyme and phosphate remover to use if you don't have lots of trees in your backyard, and if you don't plan on having lots of people swimming all the time. Pool Perfect plus Phos-Free is added weekly at a rate of 1 ounce per 2,000 gallons of water. This is a 15,000 gallon pool, so I'm just going to go ahead and round up to 16,000 and do 8 ounces. This is Orinda CV700. It's one of the most powerful stabilized enzymes on the marketplace. It's also got a very powerful phosphate remover in it. It's applied also at the rate of 1 ounce per 2,000 gallons of water. This is better to use if you have lots of trees in your backyard, if you expect to get lots of dirt, and if you expect to swim all the time in the summertime. This is also added at a rate of 1 ounce per 2,000 gallons of water weekly. So I'm just going to round this pool up again to 16,000 gallons and do 8 ounces. This is all natural stuff, so if I do a little bit extra, it's not going to hurt anything. This is called Free and Clear by Sea Clear. It's a super powerful stabilized enzyme with a phosphate remover and an added clarifier. This is actually best for people who have cartridge filters. Cartridge filters don't filter out as much as DE filters do, so the added clarifier in Free and Clear will help your cartridge filter have a better filter efficiency. Free and clear is a little more powerful because it has the added clarifier, so it calls for 4 ounces per 10,000 gallons of water a week. So this is a 16,000 gallon pool. I'm going to add roughly about 6 ounces into the pool. These little guys are called Mighty Pods by Sea Clear. Essentially what it is dried, free and clear, put into a little pouch, and each pouch treats 15,000 gallons of water. So if you have a 15,000 gallon pool, throw one of these in your pool each week. It adds an enzyme, phosphate remover, and a clarifier.
Step 4. Add Polyquat 60 in the summer months.
Keeping algae out of the pool is actually one of the things that takes up the most chlorine, which is why a lot of times you have to keep your chlorine so high to keep algae out. So what we do in this regimen to keep algae gone is we use borates, we use mineral feeder, we use enzymes and phosphate removers to remove algae food. And then once in the summertime when your pool warms up, you need to start using Polyquat 60. Your pool's going to warm up to between 80 and 85 degrees most likely in the summertime. At this temperature, algae will reproduce and double in size in 5 hours. So, by adding Polyquat 60 regularly, you'll kill off algae without needing chlorine to do it.
Polyquat 60 is a very powerful algicide for algae prevention. It works by attaching and starving algae, effectively killing spores within a few hours. It works with or without chlorine. Polyquat 60 only needs to be used in the summer months. The first week, you add 8 ounces per 10,000 gallons of pool water. Every week after that, until the end of the season, you add 3 ounces per 10,000 gallons of pool water directly into the pool. Step 5. Maintain between 0.5 and 1 part per million chlorine with tablets.
By combining borates, a mineral feeder, an enzyme and phosphate remover, and using Polyquat 60, we've set ourselves up to need less than 1 part per million free chlorine throughout the season. So we only need to use very minimal chlorine tablets. Last year I took care of a 15,000 gallon pool doing this, and I only used 1 chlorine tablet a week to maintain that much. It's going to be different for everyone, but I promise you your chlorine needs will be super minimized.
To discover the minimum amount of tablets needed to maintain 0.5 to 1 part per million chlorine, start with 2 tablets per 10,000 gallons of water. A 15,000 gallon pool would start with 3 tabs. Test your chlorine 2 to 3 times weekly. If 3 tabs has your chlorine higher than 1, remove a tab the next week. Test your chlorine 2 to 3 times again. Continue this process until you discover the least amount of tabs to use in order to maintain 0.5 to 1 part per million chlorine. For a 15,000 gallon pool, I only had to use 1 tablet each week. Step 6. Shock as needed.
Now, a lot of people will shock every week, sometimes twice a week or once every 2 weeks. But with this chemical regimen, shocking now becomes an as-needed thing where you only do it in special situations like heavy rains, or if you have a giant pool party, or if you have a week where you use a pool every day for several hours. And there's 2 different types of shock that we recommend you use. The first is called Power Magic AC Super Oxidizer, and the second is called Shock and Swim.
Power Magic Super Oxidizer is a unique blend of cal-hypo, borate, and pH buffers. It's better to use than regular chlorine shock. The dosage rate is 1 pound per 10,000 gallons. Cal-hypo shock should be used with care as they add to the overall calcium hardness level of your pool. It should only be used when necessary. You should use Power Magic after heavy rains, if you find a dead animal in your pool, or after a biological accident, such as someone pooping into the pool. This actually happens more than you would think, and anytime you get one piece of feces in the pool, it can release up to 100 million different strains of bacteria. So it's very important to get your chlorine up to kill those bacteria. Shock and Swim is a very powerful non-chlorine oxidizer. Using it doesn't add any calcium hardness to the pool, nor does it add any chlorine. But it is able to oxidize all non-living organics, like sweat, oils, makeup, pollen. You should use Shock and Swim after very heavy pool use, like a giant pool party or a barbecue or a family gathering. You should also use it after consecutive days of constant use, i.e. you have 4 to 5 people in the pool for several hours a day, several days in a row. The dosage rate is 1 pound per 10,000 gallons of pool water.
It's still very important to test your water regularly. There's certain things you want to test weekly, sometimes twice a week, and there's certain things you want to test monthly. Either way, you need to test your pool water regularly and maintain this chemical balance.
You should test your chlorine twice a week, maintain it between 0.5 and 1 part per million. You should test your pH twice a week, maintain it between 7.2 and 7.6. Your calcium hardness, cyanuric acid, and phosphate should be tested once a month. Cyanuric acid needs to be kept between 30 and 50 parts per million. Calcium hardness is best kept between 175 and 400 parts per million. And your phosphate levels should be kept between 0 and 100 parts per billion. You should test your borate once every 12 months and maintain it at 40 to 80 parts per million. That is the 6-step process in a nutshell. It allows you to keep between 0.5 and 1 part per million chlorine without having any problems at all. Before you get started on this chemical regimen, it's best to have your water tested to make sure that it is properly balanced before you add some of these important chemicals like borates and minerals. So why don't you go ahead, grab a water sample out of your pool, head on down to the store at 4016 West Plano Parkway, and let's get you tested and started up on our low chlorine system.